In the heart of London, where ancient traditions meet modern security protocols, a single gesture from a 7-year-old princess would expose a decades-old conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the British government. What began as a routine afternoon drive through the streets of Windsor would become the catalyst for the most significant royal security breach in contemporary history. Princess Charlotte had been taught the secret window signals since she could barely speak, innocent-looking gestures that could summon immediate help in the most desperate situations. The royal family never imagined that one autumn afternoon, their youngest member would need to use these signals not against external threats, but against those sworn to protect them. When the black SUV deviated from its predetermined route that Tuesday afternoon, and when familiar faces suddenly seemed menacing, Charlotte's small hand pressed against the tinted window in a pattern that would change everything. The response was swift, dramatic, and would uncover a web of betrayal that had been carefully woven around the royal family for years. This is the story of how a child's courage, a loyal guard's quick thinking, and a mother's fierce protection instinct collided with a conspiracy that threatened to destroy the very foundation of the British monarchy. It's a tale of hidden enemies, unexpected heroes, and the unbreakable bonds that hold a family together when everything they've trusted begins to crumble around them. The crisp October air carried the scent of fallen leaves as Princess Charlotte pressed her small nose against the bulletproof window of the royal SUV. Her breath created small foggy patches on the glass, which she used as a canvas for drawing tiny hearts with her finger. Outside, the familiar streets of Windsor scrolled past like pages in a well-loved picture book. "Mummy, why is Uncle James driving today instead of Thompson?" Charlotte asked, her voice carrying that particular mix of curiosity and innocence that only children possess. She had noticed immediately that their regular driver, Thompson, was nowhere to be seen when they left Kensington Palace. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, looked up from her phone where she had been reviewing the afternoon schedule. The question caught her slightly off guard, though she tried not to show it. Thompson had been their driver for 3 years, and his sudden absence that morning had raised a small flag of concern that she had pushed to the back of her mind. "Thompson had a family emergency, darling," Catherine replied, smoothing Charlotte's hair affectionately. "Uncle James stepped in to help us today." The explanation satisfied Charlotte, who returned to her window art, but Catherine found herself studying the back of their substitute driver's head with renewed attention. James Morrison had been with the Royal Protection Unit for 8 years. His record was impeccable, his background thoroughly vetted, and he had driven various members of the royal family on numerous occasions. Yet something felt different today. Perhaps it was the way he had avoided eye contact when introducing himself that morning, or the slight tremor in his hands as he held the car door open for them. The route from Kensington Palace to the Children's Art Therapy Centre in Windsor was one Catherine knew by heart. They had made this journey dozens of times over the past year, ever since Charlotte had started showing a remarkable talent for painting. The sessions with Dr. Camoon, Elizabeth Hartwell, had become a cherished part of their weekly routine, a precious slice of normalcy in their highly structured royal lives. Dr. Hartwell never treated her like a princess in her studio. There were no bows, no formal protocols, just paint-stained aprons and the freedom to create whatever her imagination conjured. Today, she was particularly excited because she had been working on a surprise painting for her father's birthday. "Will we see the horses today?" Charlotte asked, referring to the mounted guards they often passed near Windsor Castle. She had developed a fascination with the magnificent animals and never tired of watching them perform their ceremonial duties. "If we take our usual route, we should," Catherine replied, though she noticed they had already deviated slightly from their normal path. The SUV was heading down a street she didn't immediately recognize, though Windsor's winding roads could be confusing even to locals. In the front seat, James Morrison's eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, not to check on his royal passengers, but to monitor the road behind them. His earpiece crackled softly with communications from the security detail, following at a discreet distance. Everything was proceeding according to plan. His plan. Morrison had joined the Royal Protection Unit 8 years ago with impeccable credentials and genuine intentions. His transformation into something else had been gradual, so subtle that even he hadn't fully recognized it until it was too late. The gambling debts had started small, manageable amounts that he could cover with his salary. But addiction rarely stays manageable, and within 2 years, Morrison found himself owing dangerous people substantial sums of money. The first approach had come 18 months ago. A well-dressed man in an expensive suit had slid into the seat next to him at a pub where Morrison was drowning his sorrows after a particularly devastating loss at the track. The man knew everything about Morrison's financial situation, his work schedule, Even the names of his children. "We're not interested in hurting anyone," the man had said quietly, his accent cultured and educated. "We simply need information. Schedules, routes, security protocols. Nothing that would endanger the royals directly. Just enough to satisfy our client's curiosity about royal movements." The money offered was substantial enough to clear Morrison's debts and provide a comfortable cushion for his family's future. All he had to do was share seemingly harmless information about royal schedules and security arrangements. He told himself it was victimless, that the information would be used by paparazzi or royal watchers, nothing more sinister. But as the months passed, the requests became more specific, more invasive. They wanted detailed floor plans of safe houses, the locations of panic rooms, the exact timing of security shift changes. Morrison began to understand that his handlers weren't interested in photographs for tabloid magazines. They were mapping vulnerabilities, identifying opportunities for something far more serious. The breaking point had come 3 weeks ago when they demanded he arrange for Thompson's absence and take over driving duties for specific royal family members. Morrison had tried to refuse, claiming it would raise suspicions, but the response had been swift and terrifying. Photographs of his daughter leaving school, his wife shopping at their local grocery store, his son at football practice, all taken with telephoto lenses from uncomfortably close distances.
"We're past the point of negotiation, James," his handler had said during their last meeting.
"You've taken our money, shared our secrets. Now you're part of this whether you like it or not. One more job, and then you can disappear with your family. Refuse, and well, accidents happen to people who disappoint our organization." Now, driving through Windsor with Princess Charlotte's innocent chatter filling the car, Morrison felt the weight of his choices crushing down on him. His instructions were simple. Deviate from the normal route, drive to a specific location where the SUV would experience mechanical problems, and wait for assistance. The princess and her mother would be safely transferred to another vehicle, driven by people Morrison was assured was simply interested in having a conversation with Catherine about certain royal family financial matters. But as Morrison watched Charlotte in the rearview mirror, her face pressed against the window as she pointed excitedly at a dog walker they passed, he began to question everything he had been told. The men who controlled him were not the type to arrange polite conversations. They were the type who made people disappear permanently. The designated location was still 15 minutes away, down increasingly isolated roads that wound through the outskirts of Windsor Great Park. Morrison's hands were sweating now, his grip on the steering wheel becoming slippery despite the cool autumn air. Every mile that passed felt like a step closer to an irreversible betrayal that would haunt him forever. Charlotte had moved on from drawing hearts to creating elaborate stories about the people and places they passed. She had invented an entire narrative about a delivery driver who was secretly a superhero, using his van to fight crime while delivering packages. Her imagination was boundless, her joy infectious, and Morrison found himself wondering how he had reached the point where he was willing to put this remarkable child in danger. "Mummy, why are we going this way?" Charlotte asked suddenly, her question cutting through Morrison's internal turmoil like a knife. "This isn't the way to Dr. Hartwell's studio." Catherine looked out the window, finally allowing herself to acknowledge what her subconscious had been trying to tell her for the past 10 minutes. They were definitely not on their usual route. In fact, she wasn't entirely certain where they were. The roads had become narrower, more rural, with fewer people and buildings visible. "James!" Catherine called to the front seat, her voice carefully modulated to hide her growing concern. "I think there might be some confusion about our destination. We need to head toward the town center for Charlotte's appointment." Morrison's response was delayed by several seconds, and when it came, his voice sounded strained. "Yes, Your Highness. I'm just taking a slightly different route today due to construction on the main road. We'll be there shortly." But Charlotte had inherited her father's keen observational skills, along with her mother's intuitive understanding of people. Something in Morrison's voice didn't sound right to her. More importantly, something about this drive felt wrong in a way she couldn't articulate but couldn't ignore. The 7-year-old princess had been taught many things that other children her age never needed to learn. Among them were subtle hand signals that could be used to communicate with security personnel in situations where speaking might not be safe or appropriate. These signals had been presented to her as a game, a special secret code that only royal family members knew. Charlotte pressed her hand flat against the window, fingers spread wide, then slowly closed her hand into a fist. She waited 3 seconds, then repeated the gesture. To anyone watching from outside, it might have looked like a child playing with her reflection in the glass. But to trained security personnel, it was an unmistakable distress signal. In the following vehicle, approximately 200 meters behind the Royal SUV, Sergeant David Walsh noticed the signal immediately through his high-powered binoculars. Walsh was a 20-year veteran of the Royal Protection Unit, a man whose instincts had been honed by 2 decades of keeping the royal family safe from every conceivable threat. "Base, this is Guardian 2. Walsh spoke quietly into his radio. "We have a Code 7 signal from the primary vehicle. Repeat, Code 7 signal confirmed." The response from their command center was immediate and urgent. A Code 7 meant immediate danger perceived by a member of the royal family. It was a signal that had never been used in a real situation, only practiced during training exercises. "Guardian 2, confirm visual on primary vehicle and occupants," came the reply from headquarters. "Primary vehicle confirmed on unusual route, approximately 12 kilometers southwest of intended destination," Walsh reported, his heart rate beginning to accelerate. No visual confirmation of occupants due to tinted windows, but signal came from rear passenger side window. As Charlotte continued her distress signal, Morrison caught a glimpse of her repeated hand movements in his side mirror. A cold fear began to spread through his chest as he realized the significance of what he was seeing. The royal children had been trained in emergency protocols, including silent distress signals. If Charlotte was using them, it meant she suspected something was wrong. Morrison's radio crackled with an incoming transmission from his handlers. "Bluebird, this is Control. You are approaching the designated coordinates. Prepare for mechanical failure in approximately 8 minutes." The codename Bluebird felt like acid in Morrison's ears. It was how his criminal associates referred to Princess Charlotte, reducing this remarkable child to nothing more than a commodity in their twisted plans. Morrison realized with crystal clarity that he had been a fool to believe their reassurances about the family's safety. Catherine noticed the change in Morrison's posture immediately. His shoulders had tensed, and she could see perspiration on the back of his neck despite the vehicle's comfortable temperature. Combined with Charlotte's obvious concern about their route, Catherine felt the first real stirrings of fear. "James, I need you to turn around and head back toward Windsor Center immediately," Catherine said firmly, her voice taking on the authoritative tone she used when there was no room for negotiation. "Charlotte has another appointment after her art lesson and we cannot be late." Morrison's response was to press harder on the accelerator. The SUV surged forward, taking them deeper into the isolated countryside. There was no longer any pretense about their destination or Morrison's intentions. Charlotte felt her mother's hand suddenly grip her arm tightly. Without words, Catherine was communicating her own rising alarm. The princess looked at her mother's face and saw something she had rarely witnessed: genuine fear in her mother's eyes. Acting on pure instinct, Charlotte pressed both hands against the window and began the most urgent distress signal she had been taught. Both hands flat against the glass, then fists, then flat again, repeated rapidly. This was the emergency signal that meant immediate extraction was required. In the following vehicle, Sergeant Walsh was already coordinating with headquarters when he saw Charlotte's escalated signals. "Base, we now have code-red emergency signals from primary passenger, requesting immediate intercept authorization. Guardian 2, you are authorized for emergency intercept. Priority is passenger safety. Repeat, passenger safety is priority 1. Walsh turned to his partner, Officer Patricia Chen, who was driving their unmarked pursuit vehicle. "Pat, we need to stop that SUV now. Something is very wrong." Chen nodded grimly and activated their emergency lights while accelerating rapidly toward the royal SUV. Their vehicle was equipped with multiple systems for stopping fleeing cars, but using any of them with royalty on board presented unprecedented challenges. Meanwhile, Morrison was receiving increasingly urgent instructions through his earpiece. His handlers had been monitoring police and security frequencies and were aware that the Royal Protection Detail was mobilizing for an intercept. "Bluebird 1, you need to reach the coordinates immediately," the voice in his ear commanded. "Our people are in position and ready to assist with the transfer."
Morrison looked in his rearview mirror and saw the flashing lights of the security vehicle rapidly approaching.
He also saw Charlotte's frantic signals and Catherine's obvious distress. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside James Morrison. Perhaps it was the memory of his own daughter at Charlotte's age, or perhaps it was the realization that he had become the very type of monster he had originally joined the protection service to defend against. "Control, this is Bluebird 1, Morrison spoke into his radio, his voice shaking. "I can't do this. I won't do this." The response was immediate and vicious. "James, if you abort now, your family dies within the hour." Continue to coordinate or lose everything. Morrison closed his eyes briefly, weighing his impossible choices. Behind him, he could hear Catherine trying to calm Charlotte while simultaneously attempting to unlock the vehicle's doors, which Morrison had remotely secured. The Royal Protection detail was now directly behind them, their lights flashing and sirens beginning to wail. The crossroads was approaching, literally and figuratively. In 3 minutes, Morrison would reach the coordinates where armed men were waiting to take Princess Charlotte and her mother. If he continued, he would be complicit in something unthinkable. If he stopped, his own family would pay the ultimate price. But as Morrison listened to Charlotte's quiet whimpers of fear and saw the pursuing officers who trusted him to protect the royal family, he made the decision that would define the rest of his life. Instead of slowing down as he approached the coordinates, Morrison suddenly yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, sending the SUV careening off the road and directly toward the heavy oak trees that lined Windsor Great Park. The last thing Morrison heard before the impact was Princess Charlotte calling out for her mother and the sound of his own voice screaming into the radio. "Guardian 2, protect them! Protect them!" The massive oak tree that saved Princess Charlotte's life was over 300 years old, its trunk thick enough to absorb the impact of the royal SUV without falling. Morrison had aimed for the tree deliberately, knowing that the vehicle's advanced safety systems would protect his passengers while ensuring he could go no further toward the coordinates where armed men waited in ambush. The collision triggered every emergency system in the armored vehicle. Airbags deployed, the engine automatically shut down, and an emergency beacon began broadcasting their location to Royal Protection Headquarters. Morrison's forehead struck the steering wheel hard enough to leave him dazed but conscious, blood trickling from a cut above his right eyebrow. In the back seat, Catherine's training kicked in immediately. She had thrown herself across Charlotte at the moment of impact, shielding her daughter from any debris. The princess was shaken but unharmed, her wide eyes reflecting shock more than fear as she tried to process what had just happened. "Mummy, why did we crash?" Charlotte asked, her voice small and confused. The sophisticated 7-year-old understood that car accidents happened, but she couldn't comprehend why their driver had deliberately steered them off the road. "I don't know, darling, but we're safe now," Catherine replied, though she wasn't entirely certain that was true. Her maternal instincts were screaming that the crash was connected to Morrison's strange behavior and their deviation from the normal route. She tried the door handles again, but the SUV's security systems had automatically locked all doors after the impact, trapping them inside until rescue arrived. Sergeant Walsh's pursuit vehicle skidded to a halt 30 meters from the crash site, and both officers immediately sprang into action. Walsh approached the driver's side while Officer Chen circled toward the passengers, both with their weapons drawn but lowered. They had no idea whether Morrison had been compromised, suffered a medical emergency, or if the crash was part of some larger threat. "James," Walsh called through the driver's window. "Can you hear me? Are you injured?" Morrison turned toward the voice, his eyes struggling to focus through the blood and confusion. When he recognized Walsh, a wave of relief washed over him. These were people he could trust, people who would protect Charlotte and Catherine from the nightmare he had almost delivered them into. "David," Morrison croaked, his voice barely audible. "They're coming. Armed men, approximately 800 meters northwest. Radio for backup immediately. The princess. They wanted the princess." Walsh's blood ran cold at Morrison's words. In 20 years of royal protection duty, he had never faced a direct kidnapping attempt against a member of the royal family. His training took over immediately as he activated his emergency radio. "Control, this is Guardian 2. We have a Code Black situation. Repeat, Code Black. Royal package is secure but under immediate threat. Requesting armed response units and emergency evacuation to our current position." Code Black was the highest level emergency in royal protection protocols, indicating a direct attack against a member of the royal family. The response would mobilize every available resource within a 50-kilometer radius, including military units if necessary. Officer Chen had reached the passenger side of the SUV and was communicating with Catherine through the bulletproof glass. The Princess of Wales was remarkably composed despite their circumstances, her primary concern clearly focused on Charlotte's well-being.
"Your Highness, we're going to get you out of there immediately," Chen called through the window.
"Are either of you injured?" "We're both fine," Catherine replied. "But Charlotte is frightened. Can you override the door locks?" Chen was already working on the problem, using a specialized device that could interface with the SUV's computer systems. Royal protection vehicles were designed to be fortresses, but they also had emergency overrides that allowed security personnel to extract passengers in crisis situations. Meanwhile, Morrison was struggling to provide Walsh with crucial intelligence about the threat they were facing. His head injury made it difficult to concentrate, but he knew that lives depended on the information he could provide. There are at least 6 armed men positioned in the abandoned farm buildings northwest of here, Morrison said, fighting through his dizziness. They have radio communication and were expecting us to arrive at specific coordinates in, he checked his watch with difficulty, about 4 minutes from now. Walsh immediately relayed this information to headquarters while scanning the surrounding area for any signs of approaching threats. The crash site was partially concealed by trees which provided some cover, but they were sitting ducks if hostile forces decided to advance on their position. James, who are these people? Walsh demanded. How did they know your route? How did they compromise royal security protocols? Morrison's confession came in broken fragments as he struggled with his injuries and the enormity of what he had done. He told Walsh about the gambling debts, the gradual recruitment, the escalating demands for information. Each revelation painted a picture of a security breach that went far deeper than a single compromised officer. They have someone inside the palace, Morrison admitted, his voice heavy with shame and fear. Someone with access to daily schedules, route planning, security assignments. They knew Thompson would be absent today before I did. They knew Charlotte's art therapy appointment was scheduled. This isn't just about me, David. There's a whole network. This revelation sent chills down Walsh's spine. If hostile forces had infiltrated royal household staff or security personnel at multiple levels, then no member of the royal family was truly safe. The implications were staggering. Years of careful planning, multiple compromised individuals, and resources that suggested either state-level sponsorship or an extremely well-funded criminal organization. Officer Chen successfully overrode the door locks, and Catherine immediately stepped out of the vehicle, while keeping Charlotte close beside her. The princess was remarkably calm, for a child who had just survived a car crash and was in the middle of what appeared to be a kidnapping attempt. Officer Chen, Charlotte said politely, as if they were meeting at a garden party rather than a crime scene, I used the window signals like we practiced. Did I do them correctly? Chen knelt down to Charlotte's eye level, her heart breaking at the child's innocence in such a terrifying situation. You did perfectly, princess. Those signals may have saved your life and your mother's life. Catherine wrapped her arms around Charlotte protectively while rapidly assessing their tactical situation. She had received extensive security training as a senior royal, and she understood that they were still in immediate danger, despite being out of the crashed vehicle. Sergeant Walsh, Catherine called. What's our extraction plan? How long before backup arrives? Armed response units are 8 minutes out, Your Highness. Helicopter extraction is being prepared, but we need to secure a landing zone first. 8 minutes felt like an eternity when hostile forces were potentially approaching their position. Walsh made the decision to move Catherine and Charlotte away from the crash site, to a more defensible position among the trees, where they would be harder to spot and easier to protect. As they moved deeper into the woods, Morrison called out weakly from the SUV. David, there's more. The kidnapping, it wasn't just about ransom. They mentioned something about leverage, about forcing changes in royal security protocols. I think this was meant to be the first move in something much bigger.
The implications of Morrison's words were terrifying.
A successful kidnapping of Princess Charlotte could be used to manipulate royal family movements, force changes in security procedures, or create opportunities for even more serious attacks. Walsh realized they might have stumbled into the early stages of a conspiracy designed to systematically compromise the entire royal family's safety. Charlotte tugged on her mother's sleeve as they walked quickly through the trees. Mummy, is this like the adventure games we play with Papa, where we have to solve puzzles and escape from imaginary dangers? Catherine's heart ached at her daughter's attempt to make sense of their situation through the lens of family games. Prince William often created elaborate treasure hunts and adventure scenarios for the children, teaching them problem-solving skills while having fun together. Charlotte was trying to apply that familiar framework to their current crisis. It's a bit like that, darling, Catherine replied carefully. But this time, we have real police officers helping us, and we need to listen to them very carefully. Officer Chen was monitoring radio communications while scanning the surrounding area for threats. The chatter from headquarters painted a picture of massive mobilization. Army units, additional police forces, even SAS personnel were being deployed to ensure the royal family's safety. Guardian 2, this is Control, came a voice through Chen's radio. We have thermal imaging indicating movement approximately 600 meters from your position. Count appears to be 7 individuals moving in tactical formation toward the original coordinates. Walsh felt his stomach tighten. The hostile forces were indeed real and were apparently still attempting to complete their mission despite the crashed SUV and the obvious presence of Royal Protection personnel. Control, can thermal imaging determine if targets are armed? Affirmative, Guardian 2. Thermal signatures suggest multiple long weapons and what appears to be communications equipment. The situation was escalating rapidly. Walsh positioned himself between the approaching threat and the royal family while Chen established a defensive perimeter. They were well trained and experienced, but 2 officers against 7 armed attackers was not favorable odds, especially when their primary mission was protecting civilians rather than engaging in combat. Charlotte seemed to sense the tension in the adults around her, even though they were all trying to remain calm for her benefit. Her experience with security drills and emergency protocols gave her an unusual understanding of dangerous situations for a child her age. "Sergeant Walsh," Charlotte said quietly. "Should I use the special phone number Papa taught me?" Walsh looked at the princess with surprise. He wasn't aware that the royal children had been given emergency contact protocols beyond the standard security arrangements. Catherine nodded approvingly. "That's an excellent idea, Charlotte. Can you remember the number?" Charlotte recited a phone number that Walsh didn't recognize, though he realized it was probably a direct line to Prince William or other senior royal security personnel. The fact that a 7-year-old had memorized emergency protocols spoke to how seriously the royal family took security matters. "Use my phone, Princess," Chen offered, handing Charlotte a secure satellite phone. "That will make sure your papa gets the message immediately." As Charlotte carefully dialed the number, Walsh received another update from headquarters. "Guardian 2. Hostile forces have changed direction. They appear to be moving toward your current position rather than the original coordinates. Estimate contact in 6 minutes." The attackers had obviously realized that their original plan had failed and were now adapting to the new situation. This suggested a level of tactical sophistication that made Walsh increasingly concerned about who they were dealing with. Morrison's warnings about infiltration within the royal security apparatus took on new urgency. If the attackers knew the royal family's current location, they might have access to real-time intelligence from compromised sources within the protection detail. "Control, we need immediate extraction," Walsh radioed. "Package cannot remain at current location." Guardian 2. Nearest safe house is 12 kilometers east. Can you transport? Walsh looked at Catherine and Charlotte, weighing their options. Moving through open ground with a 7-year-old while under potential attack was incredibly risky, but staying in place while hostile forces approached was arguably more dangerous. Charlotte finished her phone call and handed the satellite phone back to Chen. "Papa is coming," she announced with the simple confidence that only children possess. "He said he's bringing Uncle Harry and lots of helpers." Catherine felt a wave of relief at the mention of Prince William's involvement. Her husband would move heaven and earth to ensure their safety, and his military background meant he understood tactical situations better than most royals. The sound of approaching helicopters began to echo through the forest, growing louder by the second. Walsh felt a surge of hope. If those were friendly aircraft, they would have overwhelming support within minutes. If they weren't, "Control, do we have friendly aircraft inbound to our position?" Affirmative, Guardian 2. Royal Flight Alpha and military support are 2 minutes from your location. Princess Charlotte clapped her hands together with delight at the helicopter sounds. Despite everything that had happened, she was still a 7-year-old who found aircraft exciting. Her resilience and positive attitude in the face of danger were remarkable. Though Catherine knew the emotional impact of these events might not fully manifest until later. The first helicopter to appear was a military aircraft that immediately began circling their position while searching for the hostile forces. The distinctive sound of its rotors was followed by the deeper rumble of additional aircraft approaching from multiple directions. Within seconds of the helicopter's arrival, Walsh's radio crackled with new intelligence. Guardian 2. Thermal imaging from aircraft has located hostile forces. 7 individuals are withdrawing rapidly to the northwest. Military units are moving to intercept. The tide of the situation had turned dramatically. The attackers, faced with overwhelming response from military and police forces, were apparently abandoning their mission and attempting to escape. This gave Walsh and Chen the breathing room they needed to focus on safely extracting Catherine and Charlotte. The second helicopter to arrive was one of the Royal Flight aircraft, and Walsh could see Prince William himself preparing to rappel down to their position. The sight of Charlotte's father arriving to rescue them brought tears to Catherine's eyes, though she quickly composed herself. "Mummy, look!" "Papa is coming down on ropes like in the movies," Charlotte exclaimed, pointing excitedly at the helicopter where her father was indeed preparing to descend on a fast rope. Within minutes, Prince William was on the ground and running toward his family, followed by a team of elite protection officers. The relief on his face when he saw Catherine and Charlotte unharmed was evident to everyone present. Charlotte launched herself into her father's arms with the pure joy that only a child can express. For her, this had become the ultimate adventure story, complete with car crashes, helicopter rescues, and her father arriving to save the day like a real-life superhero. "Papa, I used the window signals just like you taught me," Charlotte said proudly as William held her tightly, "and I called the special number when the police officers said it was a good idea." William looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. She had performed perfectly under pressure, following her training and potentially saving her own life and her mother's. But no child should ever have to use such skills in a real crisis. As the family was quickly evacuated to the waiting helicopters, Walsh and Chen remained behind to secure the crash site and coordinate with the forces pursuing the attackers. Morrison was being extracted separately for urgent medical attention and extensive debriefing about the security breach he had revealed. The immediate crisis was over, but Walsh knew this was just the beginning. The implications of Morrison's confession suggested a conspiracy that reached deep into the royal household and security apparatus. Identifying and eliminating the entire network would require a massive investigation that could take months or years to complete. As the royal helicopter lifted off carrying Catherine, Charlotte, and Prince William to safety, Walsh looked at the damaged SUV and tried to process everything that had happened in the past hour. A trusted colleague had been compromised and had almost delivered the royal family to kidnappers, but had found the courage to make the right choice at the crucial moment. Princess Charlotte's quick thinking and training had provided the early warning that made rescue possible, and the royal family's preparedness and security protocols had ultimately prevented what could have been a catastrophic security failure. But somewhere out there, the people who had orchestrated this attack were still free, still planning, and still posed a threat to the royal family. The investigation was about to begin in earnest, and Walsh suspected it would uncover secrets that went far deeper than anyone imagined. 3 days after the attempted kidnapping, Princess Charlotte was drawing in her private sitting room at Kensington Palace when she noticed something unusual. The normally cheerful face of Mrs. Prince's band. Pemberton, her favourite household staff member, seemed strained and worried. More troubling was the way Mrs. Pemberton quickly looked away when Charlotte tried to make eye contact. Charlotte had inherited her father's observational skills and her mother's intuitive understanding of people. Over the past 72 hours, she had noticed subtle changes in the behaviour of various palace staff members. Some seemed nervous and avoided conversation, while others appeared to be watching the royal family more closely than usual. "Mummy," Charlotte said during breakfast, "why is everyone acting so strange? Even Thomas looked sad when he brought my art supplies yesterday." Catherine paused in spreading marmalade on her toast, trying to formulate an age-appropriate response. The investigation into the security breach was revealing disturbing connections between the attempted kidnapping and several long-time palace employees. Some staff members were under surveillance, others were being questioned, and the entire household was under scrutiny. "Sometimes, when scary things happen, darling, it makes everyone feel worried for a while," Catherine explained carefully. "The people who take care of us want to make sure we're extra safe, so they might seem more serious than usual." But Charlotte's sharp mind wasn't satisfied with such a simple explanation. She had overheard fragments of urgent conversations between her parents and security personnel. Words like infiltration, surveillance, and investigation had filtered through closed doors, creating a puzzle that her curious intellect was determined to solve. Prince William entered the breakfast room, looking exhausted. He had spent the previous evening in emergency meetings with MI5, Scotland Yard, and the head of Royal Protection Services. The investigation was uncovering a web of corruption and compromise that went far deeper than anyone had initially suspected. "Papa, you look like you didn't sleep," Charlotte observed with the brutal honesty that children possess. "Are you having nightmares about the car crash?" William sat down heavily beside his daughter, struck by her perceptiveness. The truth was that he hadn't slept properly since the incident. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined what might have happened if Charlotte hadn't used her distress signals, or if Morrison hadn't found the courage to crash the SUV, rather than deliver them to their attackers. "I'm just working very hard to make sure our family stays safe," William replied, pulling Charlotte onto his lap. "But seeing you safe and happy makes everything better." Charlotte studied her father's face with the intensity that had become characteristic of her personality. "Papa, is someone we know trying to hurt us? Is that why everyone is acting funny?" The question hit William like a physical blow. His 7-year-old daughter had intuited the core issue that was tearing his family's sense of security apart. The investigation had revealed that the attempted kidnapping was only possible because of information provided by people they had trusted, implicitly. "Sometimes, Charlotte, people we think we know well can surprise us," William said carefully. "That's why we're being extra careful about everything right now." Meanwhile, in a secure conference room beneath Buckingham Palace, Detective Chief Inspector Sarah Richardson was briefing senior royal protection officials on the investigation's findings. Richardson was a 25-year veteran of Scotland Yard who specialized in cases involving organized crime and conspiracy. She had been personally selected by the Commissioner to lead the investigation due to her reputation for uncovering complex criminal networks. "The evidence suggests this operation has been in planning for at least 18 months, Richardson explained to the assembled group. The level of detail they possessed about royal family schedules, security protocols, and personal habits indicates multiple sources within the household. The briefing materials spread across the table painted a disturbing picture. Bank records showing unusual financial transactions, communication intercepts revealing coded conversations, and surveillance footage showing supposedly trusted employees meeting with unknown individuals at various London locations.
We've identified at least 5 palace staff members who have received unexplained payments over the past year," Richardson continued.
Amounts ranging from £5,000 to £50,000, all deposited in offshore accounts that can be traced to shell companies. Lord Chamberlain, Sir Edmund Hartley, who oversaw all palace household operations, felt physically ill as he reviewed the evidence. Some of the implicated staff members had worked for the royal family for over a decade. They had been in his office for performance reviews, had attended staff Christmas parties, had been trusted with the most intimate details of royal family life. What was their end goal? Asked Commander James Thornfield, head of Royal Protection Services. The kidnapping attempt suggests something far more serious than selling information to tabloid newspapers. Richardson pulled up additional intelligence files on her laptop. Based on intercepted communications and Morrison's debriefing, we believe the kidnapping was meant to be the first phase of a broader operation. Princess Charlotte would have been taken to force changes in royal security protocols, create access for additional attacks, and potentially manipulate royal family behavior through ongoing threats. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. The criminals hadn't simply wanted to kidnap a royal child for ransom money. They were attempting to systematically compromise the entire royal family's security apparatus, potentially for years to come. Back at Kensington Palace, Charlotte was becoming increasingly frustrated with the atmosphere of tension and secrecy surrounding her family. Her natural curiosity, combined with her recent experience of being in real danger, made her determined to understand what was happening. During her art therapy session with Dr. Hartwell, Charlotte's paintings had taken on darker themes. Instead of her usual bright landscapes and family portraits, she was creating images of shadowy figures and locked doors. Dr. Hartwell, who had been briefed on the security situation, recognized these as Charlotte's way of processing trauma and anxiety.
"Can you tell me about this painting, Charlotte?" Dr.
Hartwell asked, indicating a canvas that showed a castle surrounded by figures wearing masks. "It's about people who pretend to be your friends but are really trying to hurt you," Charlotte replied matter-of-factly. "The people in the castle don't know who they can trust, so they have to be very careful about everything." Dr. Hartwell felt her heart break for this remarkable child who was grappling with concepts that most adults struggled to understand. The loss of innocence that came with realizing that trusted figures could be dangerous was particularly devastating for someone Charlotte's age. How do the people in the castle figure out who they can trust? "Doctor," Hartwell asked gently. Charlotte considered this carefully while mixing blue and grey paint on her palette. "I think they have to watch very carefully and see who acts normal and who acts scared or sneaky. And they probably have to test people somehow to see if they're really good or just pretending." The wisdom in Charlotte's analysis was remarkable. She had essentially described the counterintelligence process that was currently underway throughout the palace. Security personnel were indeed watching staff members carefully, looking for signs of deception or unusual behavior. Hartwell made notes about Charlotte's emotional state while marveling at the child's resilience. Despite everything she'd experienced, Charlotte was processing the situation logically and maintaining her fundamental optimism about human nature. That evening, the investigation took a dramatic turn when surveillance teams observed Mrs. Patricia Pemberton, a household staff member who had worked at the palace for 12 years, meeting with an unknown individual in a Piccadilly restaurant. The meeting lasted less than 15 minutes, but telephoto photography captured the exchange of what appeared to be documents. Pemberton was arrested the following morning as she arrived for work. Her shock and distress seemed genuine, but experienced interrogators knew that the best infiltrators were often those who genuinely believed in their cover identities until the moment they were exposed. Charlotte was having breakfast when she heard the commotion in the hallway outside. Through the dining room windows, she could see several black cars with official plates arriving at the palace. Her parents exchanged meaningful glances but said nothing about what was happening. "Is Mrs. Pemberton sick today?" Charlotte asked innocently. "She usually brings my morning juice, but Thomas brought it instead." Catherine felt her stomach clench. Mrs. Pemberton had indeed been Charlotte's favorite among the household staff, often spending extra time chatting with the princess about her artwork and school activities. The possibility that someone Charlotte trusted had been feeding information to potential kidnappers was almost too disturbing to contemplate. "Mrs. Pemberton had to take some time off, darling," William replied, his voice carefully controlled. "Thomas will be helping with your morning routine for a while." But Charlotte was too perceptive to accept such simple explanations. She had noticed the pattern of staff members suddenly becoming sick or needing time off over the past few days. Her 7-year-old mind was putting together pieces of a puzzle that the adults around her were trying to keep hidden. During her afternoon walk in the palace gardens, Charlotte deliberately tested her theory. She approached different staff members and mentioned casual details about her upcoming schedule, art lessons, playdates, family outings. She watched their reactions carefully, noting who seemed interested in the information and who appeared nervous when she shared it. Her impromptu counterintelligence operation yielded disturbing results. 2 gardeners seemed unusually interested in her mention of a planned visit to her great-grandmother at Windsor Castle. A kitchen staff member asked several follow-up questions about her art therapy schedule that seemed excessive for polite conversation. That evening, Charlotte made a decision that would have impressed intelligence professionals twice her age. She created a test to identify potential threats within the palace staff. During dinner with her parents, Charlotte announced loudly enough for nearby staff to hear, "Mummy, I'm so excited about our secret trip to Scotland tomorrow. It's going to be such a surprise that we're leaving at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning." The trip to Scotland was completely fictional, but Charlotte wanted to see if any staff members would react to this false information. Her plan was simple but brilliant. If someone was passing information to hostile forces, they might try to verify or act on details about a supposed royal trip. William and Catherine were initially confused by Charlotte's announcement, but they quickly realized what their daughter was attempting. Both parents felt a mixture of pride and sadness that their 7-year-old had developed such sophisticated thinking about security matters. Within 2 hours of Charlotte's fake announcement, surveillance teams observed unusual activity from several palace staff members, phone calls to unknown numbers, sudden requests for schedule changes, and one particularly suspicious attempt by a kitchen worker to access areas of the palace where she had no legitimate business. The investigation team moved swiftly to intercept these communications and track the information flow. Charlotte's improvised intelligence operation had potentially identified additional compromised individuals within the palace staff. Late that night, after Charlotte was asleep, William and Catherine met with Detective Chief Inspector Richardson to discuss the day's developments. The briefing took place in a secure room that had been swept for listening devices, a precaution that would have seemed paranoid just a week earlier.
"Your daughter's initiative today was remarkably effective," Richardson reported.
"We've identified 3 additional staff members who appear to be part of the information network. The false trip information was transmitted to the same communication nodes we've been monitoring." Catherine felt sick at the implications. "How many people in our household have been compromised? How long have they been watching our family?" "Based on current evidence, we believe at least 8 staff members have been providing information to hostile forces over the past 18 months. The level of detail they possessed suggests they've been monitoring Princess Charlotte's routines, schedule patterns, and personal habits extensively." The violation of privacy was staggering. Every aspect of Charlotte's daily life, her meals, her lessons, her playtime, her bedtime routine, had apparently been catalogued and reported to people who intended to harm her. William struggled to control his anger as he processed this information. What about the other children? Have George and Louis been under similar surveillance? "We believe Princess Charlotte was specifically targeted due to her age and perceived vulnerability," Richardson replied. "However, we're expanding the investigation to examine potential threats to all royal family members."
The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door.
One of Charlotte's personal protection officers entered with an apologetic expression. "Your Highnesses, Princess Charlotte is awake and asking to speak with you. She says she has important information about the investigation." William and Catherine exchanged surprised glances. Their daughter was supposed to be sound asleep, but apparently she had been thinking about the day's events and had reached some conclusions she felt were important enough to wake her parents. They found Charlotte sitting up in her bed, her favorite stuffed elephant clutched in her arms, but her expression was serious and alert. She looked older than her 7 years as she began to speak.
"Mummy, Papa, I think I know who else is helping the bad people," Charlotte said with quiet confidence. "And I think I know how we can catch them."
And the princess proceeded to outline an analysis of staff behavior patterns that would have impressed professional investigators.
She had noticed who avoided eye contact after her false announcement about Scotland, who seemed nervous during routine conversations, and who had asked unusual questions about family activities. More importantly, Charlotte had developed a plan to test her theories and identify any remaining threats within the palace household. Her approach was both clever and age-appropriate, involving the kind of innocent conversations and observations that only a child could conduct without raising suspicion. As William and Catherine listened to their daughter's remarkably sophisticated analysis, they realized that Charlotte's experience had fundamentally changed her understanding of the world around her. She had lost a certain innocence but had gained insights and capabilities that might prove crucial to protecting their family. The investigation was entering a new phase, one that would require the combined efforts of professional investigators, experienced security personnel, and one very remarkable 7-year-old princess, who had proven that courage and intelligence could overcome even the most sophisticated threats. Outside Charlotte's bedroom window, surveillance teams continued their vigilant watch over the palace grounds, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, people who had spent months planning to harm this remarkable family were still free and still dangerous. Charlotte's plan to catch the remaining infiltrators within the palace staff was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its effectiveness. Over the next week, she would become a 7-year-old counterintelligence operative, using her natural charm and apparent innocence to gather information that professional investigators had been unable to obtain. The plan involved Charlotte having seemingly casual conversations with different staff members, sharing carefully crafted false information about royal family activities, and then monitoring who attempted to verify or act on these fictional details. Each false story was uniquely crafted to trace back to specific individuals, creating a digital fingerprint that would expose anyone attempting to pass information to hostile forces. Detective Chief Inspector Richardson had initially been skeptical about using a child in an active investigation, but Charlotte's success with the fictional Scotland trip had demonstrated the unique advantages of her approach. Adults could pretend to be casual or friendly, but none of them could replicate the natural innocence that made people comfortable sharing information with a young princess. The key is making each story believable but specific, Charlotte explained to the assembled team of investigators, speaking with the matter-of-fact confidence that had become her trademark. If I tell the kitchen staff about a special dinner party with particular foods, but tell the gardening staff about outdoor activities at the same time, we can see who tries to confirm which information. William watched his daughter outline her strategy with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. Charlotte was displaying remarkable intelligence and courage, but no parent wanted their child to develop expertise in counterintelligence operations. The first test came during Charlotte's routine visit to the palace kitchens, where she often helped prepare special treats for family tea time. Head chef Morrison and his assistants always welcomed her enthusiasm for cooking, and she had developed genuine friendships with several kitchen staff members over the years. "I'm so excited about Mama's surprise birthday party next week," Charlotte announced while stirring cookie dough, her voice carrying to everyone in the kitchen. "Papa is flying in special musicians from Vienna, and we're having the party in the secret room behind the library. Catherine's birthday wasn't for another 3 months. There were no musicians being flown from Vienna, and there was no secret room behind the library." But Charlotte delivered the information with such genuine excitement that anyone listening would believe every word. Kitchen assistant Rebecca Walsh, who had worked at the palace for 6 years, showed particular interest in these details. She asked several follow-up questions about the party plans and mentioned that she would need to coordinate special meal preparations if international guests were arriving. Charlotte made mental notes about Rebecca's reaction while continuing to chatter about the fictional party. The princess had developed an impressive ability to multitask, carrying on natural conversations while simultaneously analyzing people's responses for signs of deception or excessive interest. Over the following days, surveillance teams monitored all communications from palace staff members. Rebecca Walsh made 3 phone calls to unknown numbers within hours of Charlotte's announcement about the fake birthday party. The conversations were brief and conducted in coded language, but the timing was too coincidental to ignore. Meanwhile, Charlotte was implementing similar tests throughout the palace. She told the housekeeping staff about a fictional royal cousin coming to stay for 2 weeks. She mentioned to the gardening team that the family was planning to install a new playground in a specific location within the palace grounds. She confided to the administrative staff that she was going to start taking riding lessons at a particular stable outside London. Each story was crafted to be believable within the context of normal royal family activities, but specific enough to trace if anyone attempted to verify or act on the information. Charlotte demonstrated an intuitive understanding of human psychology that impressed even experienced investigators.
The trick is to make people feel special by sharing secrets with them, Charlotte explained during one of her evening debriefings with her parents and the investigation team.
When someone thinks they're getting inside information, they want to prove how important they are by sharing it with other people.
Her analysis of human behavior was remarkably sophisticated for someone her age. Charlotte understood that the infiltrators within the palace staff were motivated partly by money, but also by the psychological satisfaction of having access to royal family secrets. The investigation team was simultaneously pursuing more traditional methods of investigation. Financial analysis had revealed a complex network of offshore accounts and shell companies that were being used to funnel money to compromised palace staff. The amounts were significant enough to be tempting, but not so large as to raise immediate suspicion. Communications intercepts were providing insights into the organization behind the attempted kidnapping. The group appeared to be international in scope, with connections to organized crime networks in Eastern Europe and sophisticated money laundering operations in several countries. Most disturbing of all, psychological profiles of the group's leadership suggested they viewed the royal family not as people, but as symbolic targets whose capture or manipulation could be used to achieve broader political or criminal goals. Charlotte and her family weren't seen as individuals with inherent worth. They were viewed as valuable commodities in a larger game. Dr. Hartwell continued to monitor Charlotte's emotional well-being through their regular art therapy sessions. The princess's paintings during this period reflected her complex understanding of the situation surrounding her family. She created images of castles with hidden passages, gardens where some flowers were actually disguised thorns, and groups of people where some figures were shown with masks behind their friendly faces. Charlotte is processing this experience in remarkably healthy ways, Dr. Hartwell reported to William and Catherine.
Her artwork shows that she understands the concepts of deception and hidden threats, but she's maintaining her fundamental trust in the people she knows are genuine allies.
Indeed, Charlotte's relationships with trusted staff members had actually grown stronger during the investigation.
She had developed a deeper appreciation for people like Sergeant Walsh, Officer Chen, and several longtime palace employees whose loyalty had been verified beyond any doubt. 1 week into Charlotte's counterintelligence operation, the investigation team achieved a major breakthrough. Surveillance footage captured Rebecca Walsh meeting with an unknown man in Hyde Park, where she passed him a folded piece of paper. The man was subsequently followed to a private residence in South London that was under surveillance as a suspected criminal safe house.
The paper contained detailed information about Charlotte's fictional birthday party, including specific security protocols that Rebecca had apparently researched after hearing Charlotte's announcement.
This confirmed that she was not simply gossiping, but was actively gathering intelligence for hostile forces.
Rebecca was arrested early the following morning, along with 3 other palace staff members whose communications had revealed their participation in the information network. The coordinated arrests were designed to prevent any warnings from being passed to other potential infiltrators. Charlotte was having breakfast when the arrests took place, and she noticed immediately when Rebecca failed to appear for her usual kitchen duties. The princess had developed an almost supernatural awareness of changes in the household routine. "Papa, did Rebecca have to take time off too?" Charlotte asked, using the euphemism that had become standard for explaining staff absences during the investigation. William nodded gravely. "Yes, darling, Rebecca won't be working here anymore." Charlotte considered this information while carefully cutting her toast into small triangles, a nervous habit she had developed over the past 2 weeks. "I'm sad that Rebecca was trying to hurt us, because I thought she was my friend. But I'm glad we found out before she could help the bad people." The emotional maturity in Charlotte's response amazed the adults around her. She had grasped the complex reality that someone could be personally kind to her while simultaneously working to harm her family. This understanding reflected a level of psychological sophistication that most children didn't develop until much older. The arrests provided crucial intelligence about the broader criminal network. Under questioning, Rebecca revealed details about her recruitment, training, and the specific information she had been instructed to gather. Her handlers were particularly interested in Charlotte's daily routines, the security protocols surrounding royal family movements, and the personal relationships within the palace staff. Most chilling of all, Rebecca confirmed that Charlotte had been specifically targeted for kidnapping, because intelligence analysts had identified her as the royal family member, whose capture would cause the maximum emotional impact while presenting the lowest security risks. Her age, personality, and daily routines had all been carefully studied as part of the criminal planning process. Detective Chief Inspector Richardson used this information to build a comprehensive picture of the hostile organization's capabilities and intentions. The group appeared to have government-level resources and intelligence capabilities, suggesting possible state sponsorship or connections to major international crime syndicates. This wasn't a simple kidnapping plot, Richardson explained during a briefing to senior government officials. This was a systematic attempt to compromise the royal family's security infrastructure as a precursor to sustained intimidation and manipulation. Princess Charlotte's kidnapping would have been used as leverage for ongoing criminal control over royal family activities. The investigation also revealed how sophisticated the infiltration had been. Compromised staff members had been recruited over a period of years, often through seemingly innocent approaches that gradually escalated into criminal activity. The psychological manipulation involved was as sophisticated as any state-level intelligence operation. Meanwhile, Charlotte was beginning to show signs of the emotional toll that her involvement in the investigation was taking. Dr. Hartwell noticed increased anxiety in her artwork and behavior, particularly around themes of trust and safety. "I keep wondering if there are other people I don't know about yet," Charlotte confided during one of her therapy sessions. "What if there are still bad people pretending to be good people around our family?" Hartwell recognized this as a natural but concerning development. Charlotte's experience had taught her to be appropriately cautious, but there was a risk that she might develop an unhealthy level of suspicion about the people around her. "It's normal to feel worried after something scary happens," Dr. Hartwell explained gently. "But remember that most people really are good people who want to help keep your family safe. The few bad people are being found and stopped by very smart police officers." Charlotte's art during this period began to include images of detective figures and police officers working alongside castle defenders, reflecting her growing understanding of the professional investigation surrounding her family's security. One evening, as the investigation was entering its final phases, Charlotte made an observation that surprised everyone involved in the case. She had been quiet during dinner, apparently deep in thought, when she suddenly looked up at her parents with a serious expression. "Mummy, Papa, I think the bad people made a big mistake when they tried to hurt our family," Charlotte said thoughtfully. William and Catherine exchanged glances, curious about their daughter's analysis. "What kind of mistake, darling?" Charlotte set down her fork and spoke with the careful precision she used when explaining important concepts. "They thought that because I'm small and young, I would be easy to hurt and nobody would be able to stop them. But they didn't understand that being small and young also means people underestimate what I can do to help catch them." Her insight was profound and accurate. The criminals had indeed underestimated Charlotte's intelligence, courage, and ability to contribute to her own protection. Their assumptions about her vulnerability had become a crucial weakness in their operational planning. "I think," Charlotte continued, "that they also didn't understand how many people really care about our family and work hard to keep us safe. They probably thought palace workers were just doing jobs, but most of them actually care about us as real people." This analysis demonstrated Charlotte's mature understanding of the difference between genuine loyalty and professional obligation. She had grasped that the investigation had revealed not just the presence of infiltrators, but also the strength of the relationships and institutional commitments that protected her family. As the investigation moved towards its conclusion, Charlotte's role evolved from active participant to thoughtful observer. The information she had gathered through her counterintelligence operation had been crucial in identifying threats, but the final phases of the case involved complex international coordination that was beyond her involvement. However, her insights and observations continued to inform the investigation's strategic direction. Charlotte had developed an understanding of the criminal mind and operational patterns that proved remarkably useful to professional investigators. The princess had also begun thinking about the long-term implications of her experience. During one conversation with her parents, she expressed concerns about how the investigation might affect her future relationships and her ability to trust new people. "I don't want to be suspicious of everyone I meet," Charlotte said with 7-year-old wisdom. But I also don't want to be fooled again by people who are pretending to be nice when they really want to hurt us. This balance between appropriate caution and healthy social relationships would become an ongoing challenge for Charlotte as she processed her experience. The investigation had taught her valuable lessons about human nature and personal security, but it had also introduced complexities that most children never needed to consider. As the fourth phase of her ordeal drew to a close, Charlotte had emerged as a remarkably resilient and insightful young person. Her courage, intelligence, and emotional maturity had not only contributed to solving the case, but had also demonstrated the strength of character that would serve her well throughout her life. The investigation was approaching its climax, with international arrest warrants being prepared and final raids planned against the criminal organization's leadership. Charlotte's role in these events had been crucial, but the most dangerous phase was yet to come, as law enforcement prepared to dismantle the entire network that had threatened her family. 6 months after the attempted kidnapping, Princess Charlotte stood at her bedroom window watching the morning changing of the guard ceremony. The familiar ritual had taken on new meaning for her since learning how many people worked every day to keep her family safe. Each precisely executed movement, each careful attention to protocol, represented layers of protection that she now understood and appreciated in ways that most children never would. The investigation had concluded with unprecedented success. 15 arrests across 4 countries had dismantled the criminal network that had threatened the royal family. The organization's leadership included former intelligence operatives, organized crime figures, and corrupt officials who had been planning similar operations against other European royal families and government leaders. Detective Chief Inspector Richardson's final report revealed the full scope of the conspiracy that Charlotte's quick thinking had helped uncover. The group had been operational for over 5 years, gathering intelligence and developing operational capabilities for what they termed influence operations against high-profile targets across Europe. Princess Charlotte's actions during the initial incident and throughout the investigation were instrumental in our success. Richardson had written in her official summary, "Her courage, intelligence, and innovative thinking contributed directly to dismantling a sophisticated international criminal network." But for Charlotte herself, the most important outcome was the restoration of security and normalcy to her family's daily life. The palace staff had been completely vetted, new security protocols had been implemented, and most importantly, the atmosphere of suspicion and fear that had pervaded their home for weeks had finally lifted. The princess had resumed her regular activities with enthusiasm, though her experience had left her with a more nuanced understanding of the world around her. Her art therapy sessions with Dr. Hartwell had evolved from processing trauma to exploring themes of justice, protection, and the complex nature of human relationships. "I've learned that some people can be bad even when they seem nice," Charlotte explained during one session, while painting a garden scene where she carefully distinguished between real flowers and artificial ones. "But I've also learned that most people really are good, and the good people work very hard to stop the bad ones." Dr. Hartwell had been impressed by Charlotte's emotional resilience throughout the ordeal. Rather than developing lasting anxiety or trust issues, the princess had integrated her experience into a mature understanding of personal safety and social relationships. "Charlotte has demonstrated remarkable psychological strength," Dr. Hartwell reported to William and Catherine. "She's processed this experience in ways that have actually enhanced her emotional intelligence and personal security awareness without damaging her fundamental optimism about people." The changes in Charlotte's behavior were subtle but significant. She remained warm and friendly with people she knew well, but she had developed a more careful approach to new relationships. She asked thoughtful questions about people's backgrounds and motivations, not from suspicion but from genuine curiosity about understanding others better. Her relationship with her parents had deepened considerably during the investigation. William and Catherine had been forced to treat Charlotte as a capable partner in ensuring her own safety, and this had fundamentally changed the family dynamic. Charlotte had gained new responsibilities and freedoms that reflected her demonstrated maturity. "We've learned that Charlotte is far more capable of handling difficult situations than we ever imagined," William reflected during a private conversation with Catherine. "She's shown courage, intelligence, and emotional strength that would be impressive in an adult, let alone a 7-year-old. The experience had also strengthened Charlotte's relationships with her security team. Sergeant Walsh and Officer Chen had become trusted friends who shared the bond of having faced real danger together. Charlotte often asked them about their work and expressed genuine interest in understanding security procedures. "Princess Charlotte has become one of the most security-aware members of the royal family," Walsh reported during a quarterly briefing. "Her understanding of threat assessment and protective protocols is remarkably sophisticated for someone her age." This security awareness manifested in practical ways. Charlotte had memorized updated emergency procedures, practiced new distress signals, and developed an intuitive understanding of situational awareness. But rather than making her fearful, this knowledge seemed to increase her confidence in her ability to handle unexpected situations. The international implications of the case had been significant. The criminal network's activities had prompted enhanced cooperation between European intelligence services and had led to improved security protocols for royal families and government officials across multiple countries. Charlotte had even received personal letters of gratitude from other European royal families, whose security had been enhanced as a result of the investigation her actions had initiated. She was particularly pleased by a letter from a young prince in Sweden, who was close to her own age.
"It feels good to know that helping our family stay safe also helped other families," Charlotte told her parents while carefully organizing her correspondence. "Maybe that's how we make the world better, by making sure good people can stop bad people before they hurt anyone."
The princess's understanding of justice and social responsibility had evolved considerably through her experience. She had gained appreciation for the complex work that law enforcement and security professionals perform to protect society, and she had developed strong opinions about the importance of standing up to those who threatened others. Her academic performance had actually improved during and after the investigation. The mental challenges involved in counterintelligence work had stimulated Charlotte's analytical thinking, and her teachers reported that she approached problems with increased confidence and creativity.
"Princess Charlotte seems to have gained a new level of intellectual maturity," reported her primary tutor, Miss Sarah Bennett.
"She approaches complex subjects with the kind of systematic thinking that suggests she's learned to break down complicated problems into manageable components." The investigation had also revealed positive aspects of palace life that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. The loyalty and dedication of most staff members had been confirmed beyond any doubt, creating stronger bonds of mutual trust and respect throughout the household. Charlotte had developed particularly close relationships with several staff members whose integrity had been proven during the crisis. Head gardener Robert Thompson had become a mentor figure who taught her about botany and environmental stewardship. Chief housekeeper Maria Santos had shared stories about her own childhood that helped Charlotte understand how people from different backgrounds could become part of an extended family.
"I think the scary things that happened also showed us how many good people we have around us," Charlotte observed with characteristic wisdom. "Sometimes you don't know how much people care about you until something bad almost happens."
The security improvements implemented after the investigation had been comprehensive but careful.
New technologies enhanced protective capabilities without creating an oppressive atmosphere that would restrict the royal family's quality of life. Charlotte had been consulted about many of these changes, ensuring that enhanced security measures didn't interfere with her education and personal development. One of the most significant changes was the establishment of new communication protocols that allowed Charlotte and her siblings to maintain direct contact with security personnel if they ever felt concerned about any situation. These protocols had been designed specifically to account for children's perspectives and concerns.
"We learned that young royals can be tremendously valuable partners in their own protection," explained Commander Thornfield during a security review. "Princess Charlotte demonstrated capabilities that we hadn't fully appreciated, and our protocols now account for those strengths." The emotional impact on Charlotte's siblings had been carefully managed throughout the crisis. Prince George and Prince Louis had been shielded from most of the details while being gradually educated about enhanced security measures. Charlotte had played an important role in helping her brothers adjust to changes in their routines. "Charlotte has shown remarkable leadership within the family," Catherine observed. "She's helped George and Louis understand that the changes in our security are positive developments that help keep everyone safe, rather than restrictions that limit their freedom." The princess had also begun showing interest in careers that involve protecting others and seeking justice.
She asked detailed questions about police work, military service, and intelligence operations. While her parents encouraged this intellectual curiosity, they were also careful to ensure that her traumatic experience didn't narrow her future aspirations inappropriately. "I think I might want to do work that helps keep people safe when I grow up," Charlotte announced during a family dinner. "But I also still want to be an artist and maybe work with animals. Can you do all of those things?" This combination of interests reflected Charlotte's integrated understanding of her experience. Rather than being defined entirely by the crisis she had survived, she was incorporating the lessons learned into a broader vision of how she might contribute to society as an adult. The anniversary of the attempted kidnapping passed quietly, marked more by private reflection than public acknowledgement. Charlotte had requested a small ceremony to thank the security personnel who had protected her family during the crisis,
but she had not wanted extensive media coverage or public attention. "I think it's important to remember what happened so we can be grateful for the people who helped us," Charlotte explained. "But I don't want to keep thinking about the scary parts all the time." This balanced approach to processing her experience reflected the emotional maturity that Charlotte had developed. She understood the significance of what had occurred without allowing it to dominate her thoughts or limit her enthusiasm for new experiences. The final resolution of the case had provided closure that many victims of serious crimes never receive. All the perpetrators had been convicted and sentenced. The criminal network had been completely dismantled, and enhanced security measures had been implemented to prevent similar threats in the future. Justice was served not just for our family, but for all the people this organization might have targeted in the future, William had explained to Charlotte. "Your courage helped protect many families beyond our own." As Charlotte approached her 8th birthday, the changes in her personality were evident to everyone who knew her well. She remained a joyful, creative, and affectionate child, but she had gained a level of wisdom and confidence that would serve her well throughout her life. Her art had evolved to include themes of protection, justice, and community that reflected her new understanding of how society functioned. Dr. Hartwell noted that Charlotte's paintings now often featured strong figures working together to overcome challenges, suggesting a healthy integration of her traumatic experience into a positive worldview. Princess Charlotte has transformed a potentially devastating experience into a source of strength and wisdom. Dr. Hartwell concluded in her final report, "She has demonstrated that children are capable of remarkable resilience when provided with appropriate support and when their own strengths are recognized and utilized." On a sunny morning exactly 1 year after the attempted kidnapping, Charlotte stood in the palace garden with her family, watching Sergeant Walsh receive a commendation for his service during the crisis. As she applauded his recognition, Charlotte reflected on everything that had changed in her life since that terrifying afternoon when she had first used her distress signals. The experience had taught her that the world contained both danger and protection, both deception and loyalty, both fear and courage. Most importantly, it had shown her that even a 7-year-old princess could make a difference when faced with extraordinary circumstances. "I'm glad all the bad people were caught," Charlotte said to her parents as they walked back toward the palace. "But I'm even more glad that we learned how many good people there are who want to help keep everyone safe." As they entered the palace doors, surrounded by security personnel who had become trusted friends and advisors, Charlotte carried with her the confidence that comes from having faced real danger and emerged stronger. Her remarkable journey from victim to partner in her own protection had demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and resilience could overcome even the most sophisticated threats. The little princess who had once drawn hearts on car windows now understood that true security came not just from bulletproof glass and trained guards, but from the strength of character and the support of people who genuinely cared about protecting what mattered most. In learning to protect herself, Charlotte had helped protect countless others, and in facing her fears, she had discovered reserves of courage that would guide her throughout her extraordinary life.